So you expect that these supply constraints will really outweigh any developments that we get in an Iran nuclear deal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the market's been watching, the Iran nuclear talks for some time, and those expectations continue to get pushed out. So, in a sense, the further delay of those, just tightens the shorter term picture in the oil market. But it's not just Iran, which obviously the market is keeping a close eye on. It's really the struggles that OPEC are having, really ramping up output despite the quotas being raised under that alliance production agreement from last year. And I think that's a result of the constraints on a lot of the producers. Due to, in a sense, a lack of investment over the past few years. The amount of sustaining capex you need to really put into operations are quite significant, and I think a lot of producers have probably just eased back on that as a result of the weakness in prices following the pandemic, and that's coming home to play a big part in their lack of flexibility, the lack of ability to really raise output quickly. So this is a market which is obviously screaming out for more barrels at the moment, and producers just can't meet that demand.
Dan, I want to throw up a chart that takes a look at the broader commodities complex and just how much we're seeing, perhaps the lack of transitory impact on the highs that we're seeing. And we heard from Jeff Curry from Goldman earlier saying, I don't care if it's oil, gas, coal, copper, aluminium, you name it, we're out of it, because it is just so broad-based, right? You're virtually seeing it across agriculture, industrial metals, you name it, and it's being affected. This, I guess, super backwardation that we're seeing, how much of it is due to dislocations as a result of COVID, and how quickly could we see a resolution?
Look, there's certainly in the early part of this rally, I think the pandemic has obviously caused quite a hit to demand, and that has rebounded quite quickly. So that initial rally certainly was a result, I suppose, of some of that catch up in demand. But it is being sustained by the issues around the supply side. Obviously, just talking about what's been happening in the oil market, that lack of investment, I think that's been a broader issue across the entire commodity complex. And look, producers have gone through a lot of near-death experiences over the past few years, so it's not surprising to see them to be reluctant to really plough a lot of capital back into those operations, or particularly new greenfield operations to meet even this sort of robust level of growth and demand that we're seeing come through at the moment. So, the spare capacity in the system is quite low. And when you get threats to further disruptions to supply, like we're seeing obviously in the oil market, in the European gas market, we're seeing it in aluminium as well, all related sort of to geopolitical tensions in particular. But that spare capacity is just relatively low, and it just can't make up for, I suppose, the potential risk to supply we could get from some of these issues at the moment.
Right. To your point, I mean, all of these issues seem also very much interconnected. How is the energy shortage, for example, really snowballing into effects into, say, aluminum, as you mentioned, given that they're so energy intensive as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the heart of all this is obviously the energy transition. It's going to impact commodities quite significantly for the foreseeable future. We do feel like, in very energy intensive markets, and metals are certainly one, where they're going to feel the pinch, even if we do see, the crisis in Europe just ease a little bit in the shorter term. That continued focus on reducing emissions and energy-intensive processes, I think, are going to further constrain output of some of those key metals. I mean, we've seen in Europe, for example, smelters there shut down as a result of the very high electricity prices. And in China, we're seeing constraints on growth and output there as a result of the energy shortages. And look, it doesn't look like that's going to be alleviated anytime soon. So I think it's really at the crux of the issues that we're seeing across most of the commodity markets at the moment.